Chapter 1. The first lesson. Her first day at Harbor Horizons dawned bright and windless. The classroom overlooked the bay, where sunlight shimmered like 1,000 tiny stars on the water. 10 teenagers sat scattered across mismatched chairs, eyes wary and arms folded. Clara recognized the signs: defensiveness, mistrust, and the quiet hunger for connection they didn't know how to ask for. "What are we even doing here?" a voice muttered. It came from a tall boy in the back. Jamal, 16, foster kid, known in town for a string of petty thefts. His hood shadowed his eyes, but his tone carried both challenge and weariness. Clara smiled gently. "We're learning to use words as weapons," she said, her voice calm but firm. "For good." A few skeptical chuckles rippled across the room. She opened a worn poetry book and began to read aloud Langston Hughes's Dream Deferred. Her voice filled the small room, soft but powerful. "What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun?" When she finished, she looked up. "What does that mean to you?" Silence. Shifting feet. Avoided eyes. Then, from the corner, a girl with streaked pink hair and tired eyes spoke softly. "It's like when your mom promises to come back, but doesn't." The air changed. No one laughed. Clara nodded slowly. "Yes, Maria, that's exactly it. Dreams that wait too long can hurt." And just like that, the door cracked open. They began to talk. Really talk. By the end of the hour, Clara had learned more about her students than she expected. Jamal wrote rap lyrics to cope with anger. Maria cared for her baby brother while her mom worked nights. And Malik, a quiet boy who never smiled, drew stunning sketches in the margins of his notebook. As the bell rang, Jamal lingered. "Why do you care about us?" he asked bluntly. "We're the town's trash." Clara's eyes softened. "You're not trash," she said. "You're diamonds in the rough. I saw it once in someone I love very much." She didn't mention Sophie, but Jamal noticed the flicker of pain in her eyes. Chapter 2. Healing. Through teaching weeks passed, and something beautiful began to grow. Clara poured her energy into the program. She spent nights planning lessons and afternoons collecting donated notebooks, pencils, and books. Mr. Hargrove, the retired librarian, donated shelves of literature. Mrs. Finch baked cookies for every session. Slowly, the town rallied behind her efforts. Her classroom walls filled with poems and essays that bled raw honesty: grief, hope, anger, love. Jamal, once defiant, began to show up early. His writing was jagged but powerful. One essay, titled "The Boy Who Lost His Way," moved Clara to tears. It spoke of loneliness, of being passed from one foster home to another, and the burning wish to be seen. "You have a gift," Clara told him. "You write with truth." He shrugged. "Truth doesn't pay the bills." "Maybe not," she said softly, "but it changes hearts. And sometimes that's worth more." She began tutoring him one-on-one, helping him channel his words into spoken poetry. When Harbor Horizons announced a youth showcase, Clara suggested Jamal perform. He refused at first, but she didn't give up. Meanwhile, her lawyer, Marcus, was working tirelessly to expose Sophie's fraud. More victims surfaced: people Sophie had swindled with fake business investments. Marcus gathered statements, built a class action case, and urged Clara to prepare for court. "Your testimony will be crucial," he told her. "Are you ready for that?" Clara hesitated. "I'm not sure, but I will be." Because now, she wasn't just fighting for justice, she was fighting for herself.
Chapter 3. The storm returned. Sophie didn't take it well. Anonymous calls begin, whispers that Clara was losing her mind. Someone reported elder neglect to social services. One night, Clara came home to find her front door slightly ajar. The police suspected an attempted break-in. Her neighbors, the Callahans, installed extra lights and kept watch. The community she'd once thought indifferent now stood fiercely by her. Marcus warned her that Sophie might try to discredit her before court. "Stay calm, Clara. She's scared. You're stronger than she thinks." But instead of retreating, Clara leaned deeper into her work with Harbor Horizons. Teaching gave her structure, purpose, and slowly, that purpose began to heal her. Chapter 4. The showcase. Eve night of the youth showcase arrived like a dream. The auditorium was packed. Parents, neighbors, teachers, and curious townsfolk. Hand-painted banners hung across the stage, voices of the harbor. Clara sat in the front row, her heart pounding with pride. One by one, her students performed. Maria read a poem about forgiveness that left the room silent. Malik unveiled an art piece, a mural of the bay with the words "Hope lives here." Then came Jamal. He stepped onto the stage in a clean white shirt and trembling hands clutching a paper. The spotlight caught his face, young, uncertain, but determined. He began to read. They said I'd never rise, that the streets would swallow me whole. But someone saw a spark, a teacher who believed before I did. His voice cracked halfway through, but he kept going. She told me words could build bridges, even from broken hearts. So here I am, crossing mine. When he finished, the audience erupted in applause. Clara stood, tears streaming down her face. That night, something shifted, not just for Jamal, but for everyone. The mayor announced plans to expand harbor horizons. Donations poured in, and Clara, once the forgotten woman at the edge of town, became its quiet hero.
Chapter 5. The trial. Months later, the legal battle reached its peak. The courtroom was cold, the air heavy with tension. Sophie sat across from Clara, elegant and composed, but her eyes flickered with unease. Marcus presented evidence, bank transfers, witness testimonies, and the damning proof that Sophie had forged Clara's signature on multiple financial documents. When it was Clara's turn to speak, the room fell silent. She took a deep breath. I raised Sophie after her mother, my sister, died, she began. I gave her everything I could. Love, support, trust. But greed has a way of turning blessings into weapons. Her voice trembled, but she didn't waver. I am not here out of anger, she continued. I am here because truth matters. Because when we stop standing up for what's right, we lose who we are. By the end, even the judge looked moved. The verdict came 2 weeks later, guilty on all counts. Sophie was ordered to repay restitution and faced probation with mandatory counseling. Clara didn't rejoice. She simply felt free.
Chapter 6. A new beginning. Summer came again. The sea breeze carried laughter, now children playing, music drifting from the docks, the sounds of a town healing. Harbor Horizons had expanded into a full-time learning center. Clara, though technically retired, had become its cornerstone. Her program, Words That Heal, was now a staple for teens across the county. One afternoon, as she tidied the classroom, Jamal walked in holding a letter. Got accepted, he said, smiling. Community college. They liked my essay, the one about second chances. Clara's eyes welled up. I knew they would. He hesitated. You know, Miss B, I used to think people only cared when you messed up, but you proved me wrong. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. Promise me you'll keep believing in yourself. That's the real victory. He nodded, then added quietly, you're like family, you know. For a moment, Clara couldn't speak. The words filled the empty space Sophie had left behind. Epilogue. Full circle. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Clara sat on her porch overlooking the bay. The sky was painted in shades of gold and lavender, and the sea shimmered with reflected light. A new necklace hung around her neck, not gold or jeweled, but a simple silver pendant engraved by the students. It read, "For Miss B, who taught us to dream again." The pain of the past hadn't vanished, but it no longer ruled her. Clara had rediscovered her purpose, not in wealth, not in family legacy, but in the hearts she helped rebuild. And as the tide whispered against the shore, she smiled softly, knowingly, because she finally understood. Healing doesn't come from what we lose. It comes from what we choose to give, even after losing everything. Moral of this story, even in betrayal and heartbreak, life offers a second chance to find meaning. When we pour love into others, we often end up healing the deepest parts of ourselves.